it's not every day I see a book title and I think to myself, okay, that's somebody I'm for sure going to have on my podcast. But your book just came out. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
Get a fucking divorce already. Not holding back.
Right.
Well, talk to me about that. How come that title, of all the titles you could have put, obviously you wanted to have an effect. You wanted people to see that and go, whoa, that just hit home, right? You got a lot of books nowadays that kind of have a similar type title, like, you know, be a badass or whatever that might be, or get your shit together is one that I've seen. How come that title?
Well, I've had, I'm a life coach, so I have plenty of clients, family members, friends that, you know, you hear people complaining all the time about their partner. And it just gets old. And it's like, just get a fucking divorce already. If you're that miserable, like, be done with it and move on, you know? So that title came to me, and whenever I shared it with people, they were like, whoa, I want that book, before I even wrote it. So, yeah, I said that. I gave it that title, and it stuck. And everyone's like, do you have a subtitle? I'm like, it doesn't need a subtitle.
It explains itself.
Yeah. and it goes a lot of different directions than people would normally think that a book like that's going to go. So I didn't want to limit it with a subtitle.
Well, yeah, and I actually read most of the book. I loved it. And it's not so much about getting a divorce as it is about taking control of your life, like making those tough decisions that you need to do, right? And it reminded me when I saw the title. So my parents growing up, I mean, God bless them, they were married for 37 years, but they fought for 37 years, you know? And I always say that kids aren't screwed up by divorce. They're screwed up by chaos in the home. And so my parents were trying to keep it together, and they would always be fighting and everything. And then they had, like, there's periods where, you know, they were super happy or whatever. And I remember when I was in my 20s, well, when I was 18, they had a separation. It was really bad. Like, we thought it was going to end up in a divorce. Well, they ended up working it out. And I went for my Mormon mission when I was 19, and I get back, and the whole time I was gone, there was a mess. They're fighting. It's actually a gift because I didn't have to deal with any of it. I was gone. But I remember I got back, and then they were separated again, and then they're like, okay, we're going to get a divorce, and then they'd work it out. And then they're like, okay, we're going to get a divorce, and then they'd work it out. And I remember one time I was 24, 25, my mom came to me, and it was like probably the third or fourth time, you know, that this was going to happen. She goes, hey, me and your dad are getting divorced. And I looked at her and I go, Mom, it's about time. Like, you guys clearly aren't happy. And every one of my siblings had a similar response. We're all like, yeah, get a fucking divorce already. And so that's why when I saw the title, I laughed, because it was almost the conversation I had with my mom. And she kind of was just like, whoa, like, it kind of took her back. Like, wait, you guys don't, like, you're not devastated by this? I was like, no, we're over it. Like, you guys clearly both would be better off. And what's cool is, like, in hindsight, my dad got remarried, and his new wife's amazing, much better fit for him. My mom's engaged to get married in June, and this guy, it's like the most beautiful story I can get into later, maybe, but, like, neither of them would have found this partner that's making them so much happier if they'd stayed together. And people use every excuse of why they're doing it. Well, I'm doing it for the kids. Like, no, you're not helping anybody by doing that. So I've seen this in my own life, and that's why when I saw the title of the book, I was like, okay, I need to talk to this lady.
Yeah, I think when you do what's right for you, it'll be right for everybody in your space. Like, you know, if someone were married to me and they didn't want to be married to me and they'd rather be with somebody else, I would want them to leave yesterday. Like, there's no part of me that would want somebody to stay with me that he wasn't a hell fucking yes to be with me, you know? And so, I mean, like that story, it's they never would have found each other if they'd stayed together for like all the wrong reasons, because we're supposed to, because, you know, you think people are going to be disappointed in you. Like, we are here to live our lives and live out loud and follow our hearts. And I always say to people, this isn't a pro-divorce book. This is a pro-follow your heart book. It's a pro, like, give yourself your heart the first vote book instead of everybody outside of yourself.
Yeah, well, and that's the beauty of it. In my own life, every time I've followed my heart, it's paid off. And thankfully, I'm stubborn, because when I was in my 20s, I grew up, and you talk about this in the book a little bit, in a very religious background here. And, you know, I was in the Mormon church, and that is the religion that I grew up in. And there's so much pressure in your 20s to get married, so much pressure to settle down and do these things. And I almost did a couple times. I was engaged twice. And both times I broke it off because it just didn't feel right. My heart said, no, Jimmy, that's not it. But every other person in my life thought that's what I should be doing. And I'm great because I have a lot of friends that had similar situations and they got married and they, end up divorced, or they end up in a situation where they didn't honor their heart. I remember I went to a Tony Robbins event 5-6 years ago. It was a life-changing event for me. And in that event, I learned for the first time that we all have these 6 human needs. And based on those needs, how we're wired, which ones we value the most is kind of who we are. And so it's certainty, variety, love or connection, significance, growth, and contribution are the 6 needs. Mm-hmm. And I took this test. And the lady that gave it to me, she goes, I've given this test 4,000 times. You scored higher on your need for variety than any human I've ever tested. And I was like, I literally started crying because I said, that's why I haven't settled down. I've actually honored my heart. And I knew it in that moment. I was like, because I always wondered, should have I just married one of them? Did I screw it up? Should have I just gone a different way? And in that moment, I knew I'd honored my heart my whole life. And it was just a beautiful moment. But it was against every other person thought they knew what I should do. But ultimately, you got to listen to yourself. You got to do what's best for you. And I love the way you say that is when you honor yourself and do what's best for you, you're doing what's best for everybody else.
100%. Is it in somebody's best interest for you to stay with them if you'd rather be with somebody else? Because number one, you're not going to be giving them the love that they want and desire because your heart's not in it. So they really probably would love to have somebody that loved them the way they always wanted to be loved. But I hesitate in saying, you hear people always complaining about their partner or their spouse, and people say, oh, you need to get rid of him. You deserve so much better. And that phrase has always rubbed me the wrong way. And in the book, I say, make no mistake, you don't deserve better if you are accepting less. So if you're going to say, oh, it's okay if you're an asshole, it's okay if you cheat on me, then that's exactly what you deserve. You deserve that. If you're going to accept that, then cheers to you, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Well, and it's so true because I always say people will treat you the way you train them to. And we all have the exact amount of money and love in our lives that we believe we deserve deep down because we have this thing inside of us, the barometer that's going to tap us out at where we think we belong. And so if you need more love in your life, you got to work on why you don't feel like you deserve more love. If you want more money in your life, why do you feel like you don't have more money? There's these things that are going on underneath that really we all have the life we think we deserve. Because if you think you deserve more and you push for that, you'll get more. But if not, we settle for whatever basically comes into our life.
Yeah. And I say that, relationships are a great mirror for, if I'm in a relationship with somebody and he's not loving and respecting me, that is a great barometer of how much I love and respect myself. And yeah, I just see that so much, and we can get into that chapter about infidelity because I have so much to say about that. But
we can start there. Let's go there with it. Because, and by the way, there's so many, I have the book in front of me because again, as I was reading, I was taking notes of all these different things. One thing that stood out to me about your book is it actually mirrors a lot of my own book. The subtitle of my book is The Hidden Dangers of Living a Safe Life. It's kind of the same thing. It's settling for fine. And you talk about this in one of your chapters. The word fine is the worst word in the English language, right? I would rather be anything than fine. I would rather be completely dead than be fine because ultimately that is who wants to be average,
Right. Fine is the worst. And maybe I'll get into the story, but when in my first marriage, I was really struggling. I was really young. I'd become a Mormon, and I married the person that I thought would be a good dad and would be a spiritual giant because spirituality was always my thing. I've got a degree in theology. I've been a seeker my entire life. I've been a spiritual teacher since I was 15, so for 40 years. And so I thought, okay, I just need a spiritual giant in my life. And I thought that was it. And I was never really in love with him. I was never really attracted to him. We used to pray to be, and I never was, and I never was. And so one weekend, I just went up to Sundance, and I spent the weekend there, and I went on this hike. And on this hike, everything spoke to me. And this will be a future book called The Mountain Speaks. And so I'm going on this hike. And before I went on the hike, I'm looking at the mountain peak and I'm like, that is the life that I always imagined for myself. And I just it didn't exist. So I'm going on this hike and I'm trying to get to the summit. Okay. So as I go, there's so many things speaking to me. There's this one path that's kind of meandering. It looks like a really cool path, but I'm like, no, I'm going on a hike. I got to go up, you know? So I'm going up and like all the leaves are dead and there's like all this, like I can't get this way and I can't go that way. And I'm like, oh, I'm following the straight and narrow path, you know, and I'm like trudging my way up and sooner or later I'm going to hit the summit, right? And so I get to this place where I can't go any further. And it's just like dirty snow and some trees. And I was like, like my heart just sunk. I'm like, it's fine. And then I heard, just like your marriage.
Oh.
And I knew in that moment, I'm like, I can never, I'd never settle for fine in my life. I'm like, I can't, you know, I can't do this. So I had the answer to, you know, my question, which is, can I stay in this marriage? And so the minute I turn around and leave that fine place, I start to hear the stream. I see the most breathtaking view of the summit. And I see this path that I wanted to take, that meandering path. And I go down that path and there's picnic tables and there's squirrels. And it's just like this fun time. And I'm like, oh, yeah, this is my path. And then all of a sudden, I forget what year this was in, 1996. There had been an avalanche or something. And so I was like, oh, it's not going to be such an easy road, you know. And so it was like a total foreshadowing of my future. So it was just this massive avalanche, and I'm like, how am I gonna get through this? Clearly, to reach the peak, there's going to be some challenges, and so I just walked a little bit this way, and I could see, well, from this vantage point, if I walk through here, and I could stand there, then I could walk this way and that way, and I could eventually get to the peak. So I'm like, that's what I'm doing. I'm out. So
well, it's a beautiful metaphor. I know in my own life, and again, it's like almost like some people just want to settle for what's easy, right? It seems easier to not do that work. It would have been easier to just stay in the marriage sometimes. It's easier. I was, one of my buddies, we've kind of been going through this spiritual journey together, 3 or 4 of us, the last 5 years and there's a lady that we work with, kind of like a facilitator of plant medicine, I guess you could say. And one day she goes, wow, you guys didn't sign up for easy, did you? Because we're all pretty big personalities. And we got a lot of shit and different things, you know. And one of my buddies, my buddy Andy, he has just a beautiful quote. He goes, easy. He goes, fuck easy. Who wants easy?
Right.
You know what I mean, though? It's like all the fun of life. I actually said this, like the idea of this heaven where you just sit on clouds or you just sit up there and everything's great. Right. It's like we would be bored within hours.
100%.
Hours. Like it wouldn't even
100%.
be days. We need, in fact, you can kind of see it going on with the country. Stuff got so easy in our country that we started making up all these problems and all these issues. Because as humans, we need to be pushed. We need to have adversity. We absolutely get bored if everything goes our way. It's like if you ever watched a movie, if everything went perfect for the main character, it'd be the boringest movie ever. We love the struggle. We love the part where you have to fight and figure stuff out and, you know, work through the avalanche, metaphorically speaking, to create this beautiful life. And that's what makes it so much fun.